On Point is brought to you by National Baking Company.
Good evening and welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Dennis Chung. The special economic zones are expected to provide jobs for many Jamaicans, and with talks about possibly assembling cars locally, more people are interested in the work of the zones. We'll be finding out about the latest that's happening with the zones in a bit. Then later, we'll tell you more about the work that's being done to spur investment. But first, let's take a look back at some of the top business stories in the headlines this week.
At number 5, the European Union and Japan have formally agreed on an outline for a free trade deal. The agreement paves the way for trading in goods without tariff barriers between two of the world's biggest economic areas. However, a few specific details are known, and a full workable agreement may take some time. Two of the most important sectors are Japanese cars and for EU farming goods to enter Japan. At number 4, an advocacy group for Barbadians who offer their homes to visitors through the homeshare program Airbnb is warning the government that overregulation of the sector would be counterproductive. The Barbados Entrepreneurship and Tourism Association, BETA, says overregulation would make it difficult for ordinary Barbadians to play a part in the growth of the sector. At number 3, Grace Kennedy Money Services has launched a microinsurance solution. Dubbed Remit Care, the insurance product covers your remittances by providing a lump sum payment to your loved ones in case you suffer bodily injuries, permanent or temporary disability, or accidental death. At number 2, the government is to continue withdrawing $11.4 billion annually from the National Housing Trust to support the budget for the next 4 years. The legislation was passed in the House of Representatives. The NHT bill was piloted by Minister of Finance and the Public Service Audley Shaw, who said the government has decided to continue the withdrawal as one of the revenue measures adopted to support its budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. And your top business story goes to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who is urging CARICOM leaders to fully implement the Single Market and Economy CSME. While speaking at the 38th meeting of CARICOM heads of government in Grenada, Mr. Holness said the true expression of the realization of the integration dream is to get the CSME going. He said that for too long, regional leaders have been speaking about implementing a CSME with little action.
And when we come back, more about the special economic zones right here on Point. Welcome back. The government's special economic zones are expected to be a major driver of economic growth. Here's more on that.
The special economic zones are expected to bring new opportunities for Jamaicans and provide hundreds of jobs. When the Special Economic Zone Act was passed in January 2016, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce at the time said the legislation represented a milestone achievement as part of the Global Logistics Hub initiative and the facilitation of investments into Jamaica. The government hoped that the zones would attract new economic activities supported by the provisioning of new infrastructure. Domestic suppliers would also be facilitated in the SEZs to sell to companies located in the zones and potentially become part of global supply chains. It was also envisioned that the MSME sector would have an opportunity to be part of the SEZ.
We're now joined by Mr. Metri Seaga, the chairman of the Special Economic Zone Authority. Welcome to On Point, Metri. Metri, what are the special economic zones?
Well, thanks for having me, Dennis. Special Economic Zone is actually a new authority that has been set up that takes place of the repealed Free Zones Act in August 2016. Free zones, there are 183 of them in Jamaica. So one of our first mandates and responsibilities is to regulate those 183 companies, get them in order, make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. The bigger picture, and I guess phase 2 we could call it, is to promote, manage, regulate, and run the entire authority of economic zones in Jamaica. Now we have to build them before we can manage and run them. Okay. And we really don't have them in place. So it is important for us to start to develop clusters of manufacturing companies around which zones can be built.
And the special economic zones can be located anywhere, eh?
Yeah, at this point, we're trying to stay away as much as we can from standalone special economic zones.
Okay.
Some of the BPO sectors that fall into that category do fit into standalones, and we'll work with them. But really, the objective is to have areas within which we can develop
like
clusters. Parts. So that the idea is that if you are manufacturing, let's say this table, the person who is manufacturing the standoffs for the table are located close by.
Right, yeah.
It's also envisaged that local companies in and outside of the special economic zones will be benefiting by selling into these zones and selling outside of the zones into these other companies. So it's really a holistic approach to bring businesses together, doing business for one main goal, which is to bring products here, whether raw material, goods, or services, add some value to them and move them on, whether it be into the local market or into foreign markets.
And what's the difference between the special economic zone and the free zone that is replacing?
The free zone had certain stipulations, which was that you had to export 85% of of the work that you did in the free zones, and you got certain benefits for that. The WTO frowned upon that and thought that we were giving special incentives to people who are exporting and selling into other markets. So the government, in their wisdom, decided to move to the special economic zone regime.
So what advantage does the SEZ bring to us that operating normally would have?
Well, if we develop a world-class authority with good regulations, with reasonable fees, with good benefits to investors, what it will do is it will set a platform for major investors to come in and to develop their businesses. You see, what Jamaica has, Dennis, is location.
Yes.
We are located in the Americas, where a country like Singapore is located in Asia.
Yes.
Our ability to bring products from as far as Asia or North America, that's just a couple hundred miles away from us, and our proximity to South America and the channels to the rest of the world give us a significant advantage that we have not taken advantage of. Maybe we couldn't before because the shipping lines weren't available and the routes weren't available. But today, they certainly are available, and we need to take advantage before someone else who is near to us goes and does it for us.
Yeah, but then one of the challenges that we have, isn't it, that you can't really operate a very efficient economic zone without a proper environment and bureaucracy also backing it up. So it's not going to be a challenge to us. I mean, it's a significant problem.
A challenge, yes, but insurmountable challenge, absolutely not. We have some good infrastructure in Jamaica.
Yeah.
We have good roadways, we have good telecoms, we have English-speaking,
but the problem is the bureaucracy.
Population. Yes, bureaucracy is a problem, and it's something we're working on. I think that recent reports have shown that our ease of doing business has improved, our ability to get things done quicker has improved. So we are moving in the right direction. But are we doing that fast enough? Absolutely not. And one of our mandates at the Special Economic Zone is to bring government agencies together to look at things holistically. So one of the things we have done, we just went on an immersion visit to Singapore, where we had players like the head of the tax department, the head of customs, the head of our investment agency. These are people that were there hearing everybody in that country speak about the same exact thing. Every meeting, every agency you're going to hear the people saying the same thing. They are singing from the same hymn sheet. So what we have decided to do is bring them to Jamaica. So we have signed an MOU with them, bringing them to Jamaica to do a series of 10 workshops for us in 10 different agencies. And they are going to try to instill their understanding of how, and they call it whole of government. We call it join-up government, how it really works. And hopefully we'll start the process. But, you know, Dennis, we have to be careful. We are a society that wants immediate results. And it doesn't happen overnight. We don't change cultures and mindsets overnight. So we have to start the ball rolling.
Yeah, but isn't one of the problems, though, that we want things to happen, but still, in many respects, we don't like accountability. So if you look at the bureaucracy, I mean, how are we going to get an environment that facilitates this inefficient SEZ without the proper accountability behind it in the bureaucracy?
We have to put the accountability in place, and one of the things they intend to do, and part of their program, is to meet with the cabinet prior to meeting with the agencies to make sure that we have buy-in at the very top. So I think that, you know, one of the things I learned on that trip is that they simply don't take no for an answer. They run out of people, they import them. They run out of land, they build it. You know, a third of their country is reclaimed land. So they punch way above their weight class. And we do too, but just in different areas. Who would think that we would have the fastest man and woman alive in Jamaica? We punch way above our weight class in athletics, in certain sports. Why can't we do it in business? Because we don't have the mindset right. And we have to start, and I firmly believe that we have to start somewhere.
I don't think it's not the private sector people who don't have the mindset, it's the supporting bureaucracy around it.
You know, Dennis, as a member of the private sector, I'm going to agree with you partially, because I think the private sector does have some blame to take. We have not insisted enough that our politicians and our bureaucrats do the right thing. And that falls on us. We have allowed the complacency to take place, and we have done some things that, you know, we do it the easy way because the hard way takes longer. So that's just not on anymore. And I'm not here telling you it's going to be an easy task, you know, because it's a mindset shift. But if we are going to have Jamaica as our true hub of business in this region, we're going to have to build some world-class economic zones. And if we're going to do that, we have to put the regulation right at the beginning.
I agree, but then, and I agree with you about the private sector. I mean, we don't push enough many times. But sometimes the real issue of the bureaucracy is what push people a certain way. I mean, I think about the special economic zone, and I think about the competition between them and the local manufacturer. And the fact that you have people also who are being facilitated to bring in imports illegally or without customs duty. How do we prevent against that happening?
You know, and I will say this to you, we are not the only country that is bandoling. We are not the only country that people try to evade customs duties.
The problem is that we've been doing it for so long.
For so long, and it's ingrained now. And you know, it was really enlightening when we went to Singapore to hear the head of customs talk about her customers. She didn't view the people that were doing business with them as tax collection.
Which is what we see it as.
Yeah, we see it as straight tax collection. She was looking at how many less points could she get her customers to touch before getting their goods. And the head of our customs is there. She's ready. She's willing.
So what was her reaction at the time?
You know, you saw her face light up. You could
should have
see
taken
that.
A picture and carry back.
No, but I mean, she's ready to move. I think once we get that buy-in at the very top, and then we have the heads of agencies who have learned about it, then we have 40 people from every agency now going to be going into a workshop for 1 week each, and then going back into their offices. And hopefully that will spread and permeate throughout the offices, and hopefully we're going to see a difference.
So the Singaporeans are going to come and help us with that,
Yeah.
that change.
Absolutely.
So what is the timeline? What's the method of that happening?
We are expecting, obviously we went to Singapore already. We just came back. We have a team scheduled to come here before the end of August. So that's within a month. Those workshops will take probably about 30 days to complete, because we have different people from different areas coming. Then we'll move to the next level of trying to get them to develop a roadmap for us to go from where we are now. So what they're doing is they're setting the framework for us, the development. So they're dealing with education. They're going into HART, they're going into the Ministry of Education, going to help us to develop programs that will put us on the right footing to be able to get these economic zones. Then within 12 months, we expect them to develop with us a roadmap as to how we're going to develop the economic zones, where, what, and how. And then the last phase would be for them to actually help us with the implementation.
So what's the timeline for implementing this? So because I mean, we start racing against the clock here, because the Panama Canal is open up, and we need to get this logistics.
I don't know if you heard the timelines that I just said, but 1 month, 6 months, and 12 months.
So in 12 months, we should have these things fully operational.
We expect to have a roadmap within 12 months of them leaving here from the training that will guide us as to what the right investments are, what type of companies we should be looking for, how we should go about marketing to them, who we should be targeting, where they should be, and how we should go about building them. Then the final phase will actually be implementation. So if I would say then it's within 18 months, if we don't see something moving, we have not fulfilled our mandate.
Well, and I understand, and I appreciate, Metri, that we have to do the thing right. It makes no sense rushing it. But shouldn't we, at this point, be starting the process of identifying some of the companies, for example, some of our local manufacturers who can migrate into that scenario?
You see, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't want to identify people that are not the right fit. So what we need to do is do the work first. We need to do the hard work first to identify who the right fit is. But that doesn't mean that the special economic zone is not doing a lot of work in the interim. We're developing the regulations. We are regulating companies every day. We're putting new companies into the system every day. We just had...
So it's building out then?
Yeah, man, we're building out as we speak. We have a call center being developed out in Nagel's Head. We have one that's being done by private sector out in White Mall. We have another one, the Jockey Factory. We're intimately involved with that. The Amazon, the CSI company out of California are bringing Amazon to Jamaica. They're doing all their call center work.
Metri, before we go, impact. Are we going to set up something where we can measure impact over the period and say, well, this is the benefit that the SEZ has brought to us?
Well, the minister that I report to is the Prime Minister. And every month from here on in, he'll be getting a report of every single company that we have engaged and every single dollar of investment that we have brought to the table and every single person that we have employed on a full or part-time basis. So hopefully he'll be able to make that public, and we will see the effect of the special economic zone.
And will we have regular reporting? I know from you, you're a no-nonsense man, to say how we are progressing, because it seems like that's the only way that things work, that we constantly be updating and saying, this is how we're progressing with it.
Well, I think that we have an excellent communications team at the SEZ authority, and we will be keeping the public abreast of what we're doing, where we're going. And interviews like this, I'm always accessible. We'll make you know what's happening. And Dennis, I'm not willing to be a part of it if we don't get the buy-in from the very top. And we don't get the buy-in at the level of the agencies. It's not going to work. I mean, it would not make sense for us to continue. Better we just keep on doing what we're doing and don't cost the government and the country any more money.
And ourselves.
And ourselves at that rate.
So what's the projection in terms of what this is going to do for the country, though?
I can't explain to you what seeing a country like Singapore did for me. It's a country 1/15 the size of Jamaica, about the size of Maypen.
Well, smaller than St. Catherine?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And have more people than us?
They have same amount of locals they have as we have,
but the
3 million.
population.
But they have had to import 2.5 million people to manage the amount of business that they have. So you're talking about 5.5 million people living in St. Catherine. And when you look out of any
so
hotel...
this myth that too many people in our country is...
If we don't start to import people into Jamaica to fulfill the jobs that are available, then we will not have succeeded. I mean, when I looked at buildings, high-rise buildings, the most modern, technologically savvy buildings, they were all green. They all had all of the latest modern technology attached to them. And when I looked out of my hotel, just in any vista, I could count hundreds of those buildings. And I thought about the impact that one of those buildings would have were it to be built in Jamaica, just one. And anywhere I looked at 100 buildings in my view. There were literally tens of thousands of buildings like that.
Yeah.
And I think about building even one in St. Catherine, what it would do to the population of St. Catherine, what it would do to the population of our country. It's mind-blowing. It makes me realize how little we have done here and how far we have to go.
Well, the only high-rise buildings we've built recently is the housing for people in the inner city.
You know, and you call those high-rise, but they're really low-rise over there. And I mean, 85% of their population.
Well, they're all high-rise.
Yeah, they're all high-rise, but they're low-rise there. And 85% of their people live in government houses built for them that they own.
Yeah.
So we have a far way to go, but the first step of any long journey begins with your very first step. So we have to take that first step, and somebody has to be bold enough to do it, you know. And I hope, and I'm confident that our current Prime Minister is young enough and bold enough to make the step and move us in the right direction.
The other thing, though, Metri, is that with all of these things that we're doing and these opportunities you're creating, we have to find a way of ensuring our people are adequately trained to take advantage of the opportunities, because that's a significant problem we have.
It is the number one problem that they identify. You see, Singapore is a country that has absolutely no natural resources, you know.
Yeah.
Not even a beach. Not a drop of bauxite. Not even water. They import 85% of their water. So they recognize they had two things going for them. One, their location in Asia, and two, their people. But they were an uneducated people. So we think we are uneducated. They were. They developed a program that decided they were leaving no child behind, nobody. So if you didn't do well in school in a particular stream, you went into another stream. And by the time you finished, everybody had a skill or an education.
And they also have a very disciplined society, which is
now,
important.
I'm not sitting here telling you that everything in Singapore is perfect and we must adopt all of their ways. And
but discipline is not the norm like here.
No, it's not. And I don't think we should lose our culture.
Right.
I think we have a culture of spirit, and yes, we are indisciplined to a point. But we have to understand that indiscipline has costed us somewhat.
Yeah, a lot.
And so I am proposing a nice balance between the two. Let us make sure that our people can live in houses, nice houses. Let us make sure that they can drive cars or take good public transport. And most importantly, that they're educated.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, you've heard it, viewers. Metri said that if this thing doesn't work out, if he doesn't get the support, he's going to step. So this is the epoch for the SEZ, right?
Well, you could call it that, yeah.
All right, thanks a lot for joining us, Metri. When we come back, we'll speak venture capital with the Development Bank. Welcome back to On Point. The Development Bank of Jamaica is doing a lot to spur investment and help entrepreneurs find their footing. Joining us now to talk about some of what's being done is Audrey Richards, Project Coordinator for the Jamaica Venture Capital Program, and Christopher Brown, General Manager, Strategic Services Division at the DBJ. Welcome to On Point, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you,
Audrey, what is the Jamaica Venture Capital Program? Let's start with that.
The Jamaica Venture Capital Program is an initiative of the Development Bank of Jamaica, which is focused on creating access to finance for entrepreneurs by developing the ecosystem, the environment for venture capital and private equity in Jamaica. So when you look across more developed countries that have dynamic venture capital and private equity markets, what you find is that there are certain things that are common to these markets, whether it's the taxation environment, whether it's the entrepreneurial activity in the environment, the fact that investors, your fund managers, your private equity investors, your other institutional investors are actively investing. You look at the issues like the tax systems and the regulatory environment. So it's a number of different things that we have looked at in Jamaica and we're addressing through this program in order to create the environment that will, basically foster a vibrant venture capital market in Jamaica.
So it's basically creating a more efficient ecosystem for SMEs.
Right, to access finance, equity finance in particular.
So how have we been doing, Chris, from DBJ's point of view in terms of creating that ecosystem for entrepreneurs? Because DBJ has been doing a lot, eh?
Yes. DBJ has a number of programs focused on building the capacity of MSMEs so that they are able to access financing, whether it's equity financing or on the lending side. So we have two flagship programs, I would say. The Ignite program, which is giving grants and capacity development and mentorship to 27 innovative businesses, specifically at the early stage, the startup stage. And another program we have, which is the Voucher for Technical Assistance program, which is providing business development services to MSMEs so that they're able to improve their operations. So those are two of some of the key programs that the bank has, building the capacity of the MSMEs so that they are able to get into the ecosystem and access financing.
But how do you decide which ones you support? Because there are a lot of people out there who want to start business. The GEM report, for example, said Jamaica has a very high incidence of entrepreneurship, but a lot of it is out of necessity. Those are not the ones you're looking for, eh?
No, well, the ones that we're focusing primarily on in the Ignite programs are those that are innovative. So it's bringing a new product to the market or a new process to the market, a new way to develop a particular product. And those are the type of businesses that the angel investors or the venture capitalists or the private equity investors are looking for, because there's tremendous growth to come from that and greater return. So those are the companies that we want to see develop more in this ecosystem that we speak about.
So, Audrey, how do we rank in relation to the rest of the region then in terms of our venture capital system and our supporting entrepreneurship?
Well, one of the rankings one of the benchmarks that we actually use is what's called the LAVCA scorecard, which is the Latin American Private Equity and Venture Capital Association. They do a biennial scorecard where they rank 11 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean against 3 more developed countries. Right. The 3 developed countries are with vibrant venture capital ecosystems are the UK, Israel, and Spain. So they rank the Latin American countries against that. This year's scorecard, the last scorecard was done in 2015. And at that point in time, we were ranked 9th out of 11 Latin American countries and Caribbean countries. This new scorecard that was just released, we're now ranked a joint 8th, along with Panama and Argentina. We're the only one of 2 Caribbean countries that are ranked on the scorecard, the other being the Dominican Republic,
Okay.
and they're ranked 9th overall. So we
we're
have
8th and they're 9th.
Right. So we have actually improved our ranking. Our actual score has actually moved from a score of 46, with 100 being the highest, with the more developed countries being in the high 90s. And we have moved from 46 to 51. So we have actually improved on a number of different metrics. So the work that we've been doing has actually been recognized as being impactful when the ecosystem is concerned.
And you have seen, Chris, this sort of impact on the SMEs that you work with.
Yes.
You've seen that develop.
Yes, there are a number of the SMEs that we've worked in all of the programs that have been able to access investments, and it's not the traditional loan investments that is of the past. I would say there's this new form of equity financing that is entering the market that a number of these entities have been able to get access to. So it's something that is helping them to export into different markets, penetrate new markets, or to increase the sales on the local side. So the additional capital that is available is something that is beneficial to the MSMEs.
And you have seen over the years, though, you have seen more and more innovation, better innovations. So if we were to take 2015, for example, to where we are now, our business is getting a lot more innovative.
I would say they are. I would say that there's a lot more opportunity for them to actually move. Well, maybe it's not actually being innovative. I think we've always been innovative. It's actually being now able to take those ideas and actually now create businesses, sustainable businesses out of them. Because I'm sure you recognize that a lot of ideas are stillborn, or a lot of entrepreneurs will, have an idea and jump into business without actually doing what it takes to really test those ideas, understand their markets, and then develop sustainable businesses. So I think with the work that has been done where entrepreneurship is concerned, what you're finding is that entrepreneurs now have better tools to be able to move their ideas into sustainable businesses.
And the Ignite and VTA, for example, is supposed to assist with some of these things.
Right. So a number of the projects the businesses that we've worked in are utilizing technology in their particular products. So there are a number of ICT-driven businesses that are there with those type of products, supporting health, supporting education. So I think the expansion of the digital space is what is fostering a lot more of the innovation that takes place. And there are a lot more opportunities, as Audrey mentioned. The private sector has greater needs for which some of these small businesses can seek to fill in very innovative ways. And that's what we're seeing through the Ignite program. They're filling gaps that challenges existed before.
So you find that the innovation is greater for the startups or the smaller businesses than the large business, or?
Well, the businesses that we have worked with specifically in Ignite are the smaller businesses, so they are at the early stage. The idea is that the larger businesses or the more mature businesses should also integrate this type of innovation, but that's I would say a work in progress. Currently we are focusing on the small businesses for them to be able to fill those gaps and create that type of innovation, possibly for the larger business to utilize further along.
And there are a number of things that, a number of discussions that we're actually having where that is concerned. Because we just came from a study tour of some incubators and accelerators in Toronto and just outside of Toronto in the Waterloo region. And one of the interesting things is that within some of these incubators, you actually have a number of companies that actually host teams within the incubators, and these incubators are in universities. But you have corporations that actually have teams that are resident or spend part of their time within these incubators. The interface, it's all about developing a new culture of entrepreneurship, interfacing with innovators within these universities, and for the companies themselves to know actually, make that shift in terms of what they're doing in their businesses by having this interaction with innovators.
So where are we on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of where we want to be in terms of this system that we're trying to develop, this ecosystem?
Well, while we're number 8, as I mentioned, the joint 8, we want to be we want to be at least one of the top 3 entrepreneurship and innovation.
Who are the
hubs.
7 before us?
Who are the 7 before us? They're at the top of the chart is probably countries such as Brazil and Chile. Mexico is doing very well with their innovation, with their venture capital ecosystem. Costa Rica is also doing very well. Peru is joint. Peru is also up there. So there are Colombia also. So a number of these countries have they've moved off ahead of us. In fact, the Brazilian model that they used to develop their ecosystem was actually one of the things that we used, one of the models that we used when we were designing the work that we're doing now. Interestingly enough, because of some of the issues that Brazil has had in recent times in terms of the corruption scandals and so on, they've actually moved down slightly on the scorecard.
Right. So that would have affected it? That
would have affected it. Because the scorecard is not just about, venture capital is really a benchmark for doing business. What is the business environment? What's the regulatory environment? What is your tax system like? What is your whole corruption perception? So it's a number of things that also tie in to doing business, and it's establishing your credibility for investors, not just your local investors, but for us to actually move the needle where the economic growth is concerned in Jamaica. We're going to have to attract in some big investors to be able to even do some of the large private equity and infrastructure projects. So we need to have a credible environment that investors overseas can want to come into this environment.
But it's interesting you say that, because, Chris, the MSME Alliance the other day, the president said to me that he doesn't have so much a problem as access to financing as impediments to business. Right. So how are we going to develop this sort of system? You're working very hard on developing the infrastructure and the legislation and all that, but on the other hand, the bureaucracy is still causing some significant impediments.
Right. There's a tool that the bank wants to employ, which is called public-private dialogue. So it allows the MSMEs to raise their concerns around some of those broader policy impediments in the same space that the public sector is, so that we're able to identify what those challenges are to really fostering greater development in businesses. Because a number of those things have been raised, but the policy to legislation to change to make it make it better is something that is still something that we should work on. But as Audrey was mentioning, a tool that the bank really uses is benchmarking best practices across the world. So Brazil being one of the best practices or the leaders in this venture capital space is something that we've done. The study tour that we went on recently to Canada was to understand how university incubators play a critical role in developing SMEs. And one of the key things I noticed was this community that is created for small businesses as well as large corporations around the whole common theme of innovation. They want to be around the innovators. They want to be where the new technology is going, so that they themselves can remain competitive either in their local sphere or globally. And that's something that we have to continue to push.
Yeah. And you do see, Audrey, a lot of people are interested in coming behind this venture capital program and things like angel investing and all of that. Eh?
Right. And 2 years ago, our first angel investor network was established, First Angels Jamaica. And coming out of that, I think First Angels probably has at least 30 investors, and these are persons who are invested in their own personal capacity. It's not a fund or whatever. These are investors who are interested in giving back and identifying young entrepreneurs or startups to be able to invest in. So, and there's also a second network, which is Alpha Angels. So what we have found is the more we have created the environment for people to get involved, what we're finding is that the private sector is now stepping up to the plate. And that has always been one of the big goals of the Jamaica Venture Capital Program, because we believe that venture capital and private equity are really private sector driven industries. So we were only laying the groundwork, and we're happy to see that the private sector is stepping up to the plate. We have fund managers who are establishing new funds. You know, some of them we don't even know about. We just hear that you know, a particular company or a particular group of persons has established a new fund to be able to start investing. So we're very, very happy to see that private sector is moving ahead.
Which means that is moving from the government, pushing it
Absolutely,
now.
which is
to
great.
people actually wanting to get into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so have you seen from the Ignite program, for example, anyone coming out of that who has accessed this?
There have been 2 companies that have accessed equity financing that we've supported. 2 innovative projects that have accessed equity financing. So the businesses are at different stages, some more advanced than some. So our ultimate objective is to build their capacity, provide them with grant resources to purchase equipment and continue more marketing and test their product more, so that they're able to generate the type of sales that would be necessary to demonstrate to an angel or a fund manager managing an SME fund that this business is worth investing in. Something that I always say to entrepreneurs is try and align yourself with some kind of business development mentor or coach or incubator, because the angels or other investors look at that more favorably. You're being guided on how best to grow your business and operate your business in a more efficient way.
We have to break now, but before we go to break, how do people, if they're interested as entrepreneurs, contact the DVJ or get information on this sort of thing?
Well, DVJ's website is www.dbankjm.com, and on the website we speak about our lending facilities, the technical assistance and grants that we have, the venture capital program, all of our capacity building programs, and they can access the voucher for technical assistance program online as well. So dvjvoucher.com is something that they can go to and get access to that type of capacity building service.
And to add to that, there are other entities, as I mentioned, there's First Angel, their website, Alpha Angels. There's also the JBDC, because the JBDC has reinvented their business model, and they're now catering a lot more to the high potential. Jamaica Business Development Corporation. And some of the universities themselves with their incubators and entrepreneurial centers.
Okay. All right, well, it sounds exciting. There you have it, viewers. The ecosystem for MSMEs is definitely improving, and the DBJ has been at the forefront of that. I want to thank Audrey Richards, Project Coordinator, Jamaica Venture Capital Program, and Mr. Christopher Brown, General Manager, Strategic Services Division at the DBJ. And when we come back, we'll have the numbers and the word on the streets. Welcome back to On Point. Many countries around the world have special economic zones which contribute significantly to revenue and provide thousands of jobs. Here are the numbers on that.
Economic zones have grown rapidly in the past 20 years. In 1986, the International Labour Organization's database reported 176 zones in 47 countries. By 2006, it reported 3,500 zones in 130 countries. SEZs directly employ between 63 million and 68 million persons worldwide. SEZs also account for an additional 65 million indirect jobs. In India, SEZs brought in some $48 billion in the 2010-2011 fiscal year, while in China the major SEZ's total industrial output was valued at over $22 billion.
And our On Point team hit the streets and asked Jamaicans what more can be done to support small businesses in the country.
Basically, the small business of the day are the big business of the future. So young entrepreneurs just need to be given the opportunity to be successful. And I think once you can do that, then we'll have a better economy down the road.
Well, definitely the support. There's a lot of businesses out there, so many people out there with good ideas, but they just don't know where to start, and they don't have the capital. Capital is a big thing, because you can't start a business without capital. So definitely some support, guidance.
Small businesses need a voice. They need access to somebody that is going to be listening to them, and then on the other side, acting on their behalf.
Well, viewers, we've heard about some very exciting things happening in Jamaica. It's not all about the crime, but also there are some things happening with the special economic zones, for example. The chairman, Metro Siago, is here. He pointed to some of the exciting things that are happening, but also he pointed to the fact that we cannot be complacent about it, and we must ensure that we do the right things so that we can be competitive with the rest of the world and maybe be like Singapore in this side of the world. And then we spoke to the Development Bank of Jamaica, who spoke to the Jamaica Venture Capital Fund program and also the ecosystem that is developing for encouraging MSMEs. And of course, they're doing a lot there. It's very exciting. So we've had some good news today. It's not all bad news that's happening in Jamaica, and I think that if we continue on this path, it looks good for the future. Well, that's our show. Thanks to our production team, of course, and our sponsors also. And thanks to you for joining us for this episode of On Point. See you again next week. I'm Dennis Chung.
On Point was brought to you by National Baking Company.